Calamities Lesson 4, The Schoolyard Tragedy. Aberfan, a coal mining village surrounded by green meadows and a wide valley. A town of narrow streets and old houses. A peaceful place where everyone is a friend. Aberfan is nestled in the Cambrian Mountains of Wales in the United Kingdom. Anyone driving through the village notices its haunting landmark, a man-made black mountain of sludge. For generations, the men of Aberfan have wrestled coal from the pit near the village. Every day the men go down into the mine. Every day their wives and children worry they will never see their husbands and fathers again. The people of Aberfan have always been prepared for death. They have heard the mine's sirens in times of disaster. They have often watched stretchers come up from the pit loaded with men's bodies. Everyone knows the dangers. Miners can be poisoned by underground gas or crushed by collapsing walls. They can also suffer from black lung, a serious health problem caused by breathing coal dust. What the little town of Aberfan did not know was that a mining disaster could strike its women and children. For nearly 100 years, men worked the coal mine near Aberfan, piling the waste on a hillside. Villagers could see the waste heap that had built up near the entrance to the mine. The waste was mostly rock and slag, which is coal that cannot be used for burning. The tip, as people called the slag heap, loomed over the town. Everyone talked about it. Over the years, the tip grew and grew until it reached a height of more than 100 feet. The villagers knew that the tip was dangerous. For years they complained to the National Coal Board that someday the tip would collapse, engulfing Pantaglass School. But the board decided to do nothing. The members claimed it would be too expensive to move the mountain of rubble. The coal board made that decision in 1947. In 1966, the tip was almost 20 years older, higher than ever. In late October, heavy rains had soaked southeastern Wales. Black streams of coal dust washed into Moy Road, a street in the center of Aberfan. The dust formed a thick, sticky mud in the playground of Pantaglass School. But students and teachers were used to black mud. No one paid any more attention than usual. On the morning of October 21, most of the miners were headed underground. A few noticed that the tip had begun to crumble overnight. They spoke to the mine's manager. He told the miners not to add any more waste to the heap that day, but he didn't send any warning to the village below. At 9 a.m., most of the children had gathered in the school playground. It was the last day of school before vacation, and students were excited. In Moy Road, a few older children still hung around in Moy Road, wasting time before school. Raymond Collins, age 14, had just left his house when something made him turn back. He ran to his front door, perhaps to speak to his mother. No one will ever know his real reason. At 9:20 a.m., the 90-year-old tip that shadowed the village slipped 600 feet down a hill. The avalanche swept through the center of Aberfan, straight down Moy Road. In seconds, Pantaglass School was nearly obliterated. Moy Road had vanished. 8 houses were crushed flat. Then a water main burst, flooding the entire neighborhood. The tragedy was unbelievable. Townspeople grabbed miners' shovels and other tools to help search for survivors. Mothers and fathers clawed at the debris. For days, rescue workers struggled to find living children beneath the rubble of Pantaglass School. But nearly everyone was dead. The children who hadn't been killed instantly were drowned after the broken water main flooded the area. When workers thought they were finished, they heard a tiny voice from inside the heap of sludge. "My name is Margaret! My name is Margaret!" cried a little girl. The rescue workers promised the child they would save her. But when they finally found Margaret, she had died. A few children swept along in the ruins of the school survived, but 116 were killed, nearly all the school-age children in the village. 28 adults were also killed, mostly women working as housewives or teachers. George Williams, the town barber, was grateful he overslept for work that morning. As he approached his shop on Moy Road, he heard a roar coming from the mountain. He guessed it was the tip. Williams was soon stuck in sludge up to his waist. "If I had been on time, I would have had it," he said. No one in town was untouched by the accident. Everyone lost a wife or a child, a nephew or a grandchild, a cousin, a best friend. Jeff Collins, an engineer, lost his entire family. "I found my wife in 2 pieces, my little Peter smothered in the school, my Raymond crushed at what used to be our front door." Collins' father spent most of his life in the mines. He helped pile the slag that killed his grandchildren. Lord Robins, head of National Coal Board, visited Aberfan soon after the disaster. "There will be money for all," he promised. but grieving families shouted insults at him. "You murdered our children," right on the death certificate, buried alive by the National Coal Board. The funerals took place over several days. The dead were buried on a green hillside overlooking the town. People from all over the world sent flowers for the graves, but the memories themselves belonged to the people of Aberfan. "For little Di from his auntie," said one card. At a child's grave, a man quietly dropped a ragged teddy bear on top of a coffin. A year after the accident, Aberfan had still not recovered. Most of the rubble had been cleaned up. Some of the houses had been rebuilt, but people like Jeff Collins could not go back to their new homes. "I spent one night there," he said, "but I couldn't stand being alone, so I went back to my dad's cottage." Aberfan had plenty of money to rebuild the village. Huge gifts of cash had come from around the world. The National Coal Board had given thousands of dollars to each parent. But the lives of the villagers could not be rebuilt. They had no one to work for. People had looked to their children for hope, and most of the children were gone. The tragedy also caused arguments among neighbors. Parents who had lost their children had a hard time dealing with families who had not. "Aberfan may never get over this disaster. As John Collins said, 'We watched a generation of babies grow, and they were wiped out.'"